Chapter 11. The Patagonian Whispers. The Starlight Voyager had ventured farther south than usual, cutting through the icy waters off Patagonia's coast. Silver steered the yacht with steady hands, her eyes fixed on the horizon where the rugged cliffs loomed large against a storm-gray sky. It wasn't their usual tropical journey. Instead, it was a world of stark beauty, where glaciers met the sea, and the winds howled with an almost haunting echo. This voyage had brought aboard a peculiar group: a world-renowned ornithologist seeking rare seabirds, an environmental scientist researching local kelp forests, and a reclusive writer who had taken to sitting quietly by the stern, watching the waves and scribbling in his leather-bound notebook. As the yacht sliced through the cold, choppy waters, Captain Dana Silver Gray maintained her unshakable calm. Silver had captained through storms and sunny shores alike, but these waters had a wild energy, and she felt the weight of them in her bones. The crew could feel it too. Below deck, Ray, the engineer, grumbled to himself as he checked the systems. "Who sails down here anyway?" he muttered, tightening a loose bolt. "Patagonia's no place for pleasure cruises. Next time, I'm voting for the Mediterranean." Up in the galley, Aiden worked his usual culinary magic, though he had to adjust his plans for the colder climate. "Fresh cod soup and garlic bread for lunch," he announced, his sharp knife cutting through the fish with precision. The air was thick with the scent of onions and herbs, a comforting smell amid the chill of the southern seas. Camille, the yacht's marine biologist, had already thrown on her cold water diving gear, undeterred by the frigid temperatures. "These kelp forests down here are incredible," she explained to Isla as they prepared to dive. "They're one of the most productive ecosystems on Earth." Isla, the young deckhand, looked a bit skeptical, though her enthusiasm was as palpable as ever. "Can't say I'm too thrilled about jumping into near-freezing water," she replied with a grin. "But for you, Camille, I'll give it a go." Silver had dropped anchor in a secluded cove, surrounded by craggy cliffs and rocky beaches. Once Isla and Camille were ready, Silver gave the signal, and they slipped into the dark, green-tinged water. The cold was like a shock, but they adjusted quickly, descending toward the thick kelp forests swaying gently with the currents. Below the surface, the world was silent except for the rhythmic pulsing of Camille's breathing. The kelp grew in dense, towering columns, reaching up like a forest underwater. Fish darted between the fronds, their scales flashing in the filtered light. Camille pointed to a small, red-orange fish hiding within the kelp, a species she hadn't seen before. Isla, armed with a waterproof camera, snapped photos, her fascination with the scene overcoming her discomfort. Then suddenly, a sound rippled through the water, a deep, rumbling echo that seemed to come from the depths. Camille and Isla exchanged glances. It was too rhythmic to be an engine, too resonant to be the waves. As the sound continued, they decided to surface and head back to the yacht, their minds buzzing with questions. Back on deck, Camille quickly reported the strange underwater noise to Silver, who listened with her usual calm intensity. "Whales?" Isla suggested, though her tone betrayed her unease. "Possible," Silver replied, but her gaze was distant. "Or something else. These waters have their mysteries." The ornithologist, a wiry man named Dr. Lin, overheard them and joined the conversation. "You're not the first to report strange sounds in these parts. The indigenous people have long held that spirits inhabit these waters. They say they protect the land from those who would harm it." "Protect it from what?" Ela asked, intrigued. Dr. Lin shrugged. "The details vary. Some say the spirits guard the whales. Others say they protect the kelp forests, which are vital to the local ecosystem." Silver gave him a curious look. "Well, whatever's down there, we'll keep our distance." That night, the crew and guests gathered on deck for dinner. The conversation flowed from Camille's discoveries to the harsh beauty of Patagonia. Dr. Lin spoke passionately about the rare seabirds nesting on the cliffs, and the environmental scientist shared insights on kelp's role in combating climate change. But as the evening wore on, the wind picked up, howling across the deck. The yacht rocked gently in the waves, but there was something more, a soft, eerie sound that seemed to drift across the water. A low hum, almost a whisper, that blended with the wind. The guests fell silent, listening. "What is that?" Isla asked, her voice barely a whisper. Silver looked around, her eyes narrowing. Could be just the wind, but it sounds almost like singing. Camille and Isla exchanged uneasy glances. The sound had the quality of something ancient, something alive. They turned in for the night, though sleep was difficult with the strange sounds reverberating in their minds. Even Aidan seemed quieter than usual, serving coffee the next morning with a thoughtful look. As they prepared for a shore excursion to observe the local bird life, Ray approached Silver with a grim expression. "Captain, there's something wrong with the anchor. It's stuck on something." "Stuck," Silver replied, her tone sharp. "That anchor's designed to hold in a storm, not get snagged." Together, they investigated. The anchor chain was taut, pulling the yacht slightly toward the shore. But what it was caught on was a mystery. Dr. Lynn suggested diving to inspect it, but the water was treacherous, and Silver vetoed the idea. Camille had a different idea. She had a small underwater drone for scientific observations, and with Silver's permission, she deployed it. They watched the footage on her laptop as the drone descended, the cold, murky water clouding the view. Finally, they saw it, something massive beneath the water, half buried in the sand. It was a twisted structure of metal and wood, broken and encrusted with barnacles. "A shipwreck," Silver murmured, her eyes widening. "But from when?" Ray asked, leaning over Camille's shoulder to get a better look. Camille zoomed in, revealing more details: a mast, shattered planks, and something else, a tangle of rope and wood that looked disturbingly human, an arm-like shape clutching a piece of driftwood, but with no body attached. They all drew back, the image lingering in their minds. It could be from a whaling ship, Dr. Lynn speculated. Many wrecks in these waters lost to storms or other reasons. Silver nodded, her face unreadable. Whatever it is, it's better left alone. But the strange sounds continued that night, louder and more insistent. It was as if the shipwreck itself was calling to them, reaching across time to demand attention. The crew and guests huddled together, each one feeling the weight of something inexplicable in the air. Dr. Lynn recounted an old Patagonian tale about a ghost ship, cursed to sail forever, its crew bound to the waters they had once pillaged. "It's said that the spirits of the sea guard the coast," he whispered, his eyes fixed on the dark waves. "They take back what is theirs." The next morning, Silver ordered the anchor cut free, leaving the rusted chain and the cursed shipwreck behind. They sailed away from the island, the whispering sounds fading as the land receded into the distance. Yet the crew couldn't shake the feeling of the place, the lingering sense of something old and unyielding. Even miles away, Isla swore she could still hear the hum, like a faint song carried by the wind. As the Starlight Voyager slipped through calmer waters, Silver stood at the helm, her gaze on the horizon. Patagonia had left its mark, a reminder that some mysteries were better left undisturbed beneath the stars and waves.